what I'm trying to do today is to take some honey off. I was in the hives yesterday and we've got a full super here, so I'm going to take that off and give them some empty frames to fill up again. So I don't want to use any smoke this time because I don't want them eating the honey. So we'll see where we get to. Where's the tools? I've got a feeling it's going to be quite busy in here at the moment. There's the frames, nicely capped as well, so that's the super I'm after. And I've started gluing everything together as they do. This one, see what's in it. I think we'll leave this for them to sort out. It's fine. One of them's got me. Let's put this over here. So got the super off. I'm going to have to take each frame out and just brush the bees back into the hive, and then hopefully we'll have a clear super. Quite busy time for them. Let's try and get rid of these bees then. One of the ones got me. There's a brush there. Leave that on there. Just using a soft brush, doesn't harm them. Just trying to get them to go away. Now we're getting to the some of the fuller frames. Couple more to do, and we can shut this hive up and get on with things. There's quite a lot of honey in these frames. They're nicely full, nice and heavy. I think I might just fill this back up and put it back on top. So just put empty frames in that super, so I'll let them try filling that up. That's them back closed up. Let's hope they can sort something out. I've got another hive that has got two supers on. This is the other hive that's got a couple of supers on. I want to take some off these as well. I was in again yesterday. There's quite a bit on one of them, and might as well take it away because they started filling up the second super. So let them concentrate just on the one. There's a lot more in there. And I didn't have enough frames yesterday to fill this super, but I've made a few, so let's see where we get to. Again, we'll have to brush them all off with the other. A couple short still. Go away. Right. Yeah. Good. These aren't too happy, these. These are all full. Got a full super now. All we have to do now is brush these lot off. I think it's going to be more difficult this time because they're more tetchy. Let's see what it is. I'll show you. That's the super that's full. I'm going to take each frame out and brush them back and see how we go on. There, you should be able to see what I'm trying to do. The tree doesn't help, to be honest. It's It'll be a long little process, this one. An awful lot of honey and an awful lot of bees. They want it. They want to keep it, and I want to steal it. As I say, it's going to be a slow process because there's a lot of bees in this super, which I have to. I'm trying to get rid of as I'm going along, taking each frame away as I do it. So hopefully they'll stay up this end of the garden. That's a lovely frame of honey, sealed, and it's nice and weighty. The other fun bit is keeping the hens off the frames and moving up the garden. I don't think they're too bothered. Again, a nice full frame of honey. The bees seal it when the water content's right, so it'll keep. It won't ferment. So that's a good indicator to a beekeeper that it's ready to harvest. To be fair, this colony at the beginning of the year, I was surprised that it actually got through the winter. They weren't very strong. or I didn't think they were. But they've produced the most honey so far. So all credit to them. Even one or two stings now. They're not too happy with what I'm doing. I'm not surprised, to be honest. Fair dues to them. I am stealing their honey, all their hard work. And the last one. Right. There's a bit of honey comb left where they've glued this together, so I'll just leave that here for them. They'll clear that out for me, and they should be alright. So turn this off, and brush a few bees away, and we're sorted for the day. So these are the frames I've taken out, nicely sealed cells with a very small fine layer of wax, and what you have to do is just take those caps off just by scraping gently on the surface just to open up the cells and let the honey start to ooze out. Try not to damage the frame itself, because once we've spun the honey out, we can put these back to the bees, and they don't have to make the cells again. All they need to do is tidy them up, clean them out, and fill them up again. So it saves them a bit of work. I'll just put that in the spinner, which we'll show you later in a minute. Got a few more to do. My spinner's got room for 4 frames, and so that's the 4th one in. Put the lid on just to stop it splashing everywhere, and turn the handle. flies out. And you turn the frames round, do the same again, get the honey out to the other side of the frame. Have to be done fast. Steadily. You start to see the honey dripping down the sides. Starting to pool at the bottom. So it's a bit time consuming, but worth it in the end, just to do it steadily.
We've closed the honey shop down, and one idea that we have now that we have got the van working, up and running properly, is to maybe go around craft fairs to sell the honey. Craft fairs, food fairs, different parts of the country. Raw honey, like this is, straight from the hive, is the best honey that you can get for allergies, hay fever, skin complaints.
Just turn it round to get any honey out to the other side. Very sticky job, obviously.
I suppose it's even runnier at the moment with the heat, isn't it? With the heat wave.
Makes it easier to spin, really, because it's flowing.
There is some honey, isn't there, that's more difficult to spin.
Yeah, the rapeseed oil. The bees love it, but if they go on the rape, then it's a devil to get out of the frames because it sets quite hard. And the other one is heather honey. That's almost like a jelly-like honey, so that's very difficult to get out of the frames, and you have to squeeze it out. Although I've never done that. I've never taken these up to the heather moors, so I don't really know.
It's also good exercise.
Sorry?
It's also good exercise.
It is. I've got, you saw me collecting the frames from the supers this afternoon. I've taken 19 frames off, so I'm not sure how much honey I'm going to get out of it, but I'd imagine quite a bit. And this is the first honey flow of the year. There's another one later on in the year. And the first one tends to be smaller, just the way the different plants that are around.
Beekeepers were panicking earlier this year, weren't they, because of the slow start to the season with all the bad weather?
Yes. Like several years running now, we've had wet springs, so when the bees have got out onto the flowers, everything's been washed out of the flowers. So we were thinking that's going to be the same here, but this year. But the sun came at the right time, and they've made up for it. So I'm just looking to see whether I've got all the honey out, more or less.
So if you left the honey, what would happen then?
And we've got a very dizzy bee now. She's been trapped. She's been in there. So we'll just get her outside. Silly girl.
So yeah, what would happen if you didn't take those frames out and just left the honey?
They would decide that the hive's full and would either swarm, looking for somewhere else to live, or just keep. This is their food for the winter. That's their job done virtually. So they'd be happy with this, and they'd batten down the hatches really. But they would probably swarm, and that's their way of colonising new areas. When I first did this, I went at it at a pull at a gate, and the weight of the honey in the frames just destroyed the wax and destroyed the whole thing, so it was a bit more expensive having to replace all my frames. But if you do it gently, like hopefully I'm doing now, you can see that most of the honey's out of these now. So I'll give that back to the bees, they'll clean it out and fill it up again.
So what is the difference between a supermarket honey and a raw honey like this?
Well, obviously the supermarket honey, if you read the ingredients, it's usually honey from various sources, EU and non-EU countries, it's the terminology. Raw honey, it's not pasteurised, it's not filtered. We filter it a little bit just to get the bits of dead bee out and the bits of wax.
And dizzy bees.
And the dizzy bees. But that's all. Supermarket honey is pasteurised, it's ultra filtered, so everything is taken out. The complex sugars, because they pasteurise it, are broken down into the simple sugars of glucose and fructose. So all the health benefits of the contents of pure honey, raw honey, are really lost, and it's really just a syrup.
So is it true that they have flavourings then too?
A
standard taste?
I wouldn't say they had flavourings, but they blend different honeys to get a standard taste.
Because we can have two hives next to each other, can't we?
We can.
Honey can taste completely different from them.
Depending where they're flying, what they're flying on. So yeah. So that's the first 4 done. Now that's the next lot. Well, I've done, what is it, 8 frames now out of the 19, or is it? Might be a few more. But it's filled up to. Look at the. I don't know whether you can see in there because of the light, but it's filling up the base of the spinner. So I'm just going to drain a few bit off into the bucket through some fairly coarse filters. Everything's sticky and just runs out, and through the filters into the bucket. And I'm just draining a bit off to enable me to do the last few frames. And then we can get this in jars and Darryl can sell it for us. Nice clear liquid gold.
So what's the story with Manuka honey?
Manuka honey is New Zealand honey. It's again a raw honey, but they've done a very good marketing job. We believe British beekeepers would argue that our honey is equally as good medicinally, because we don't process it. It's all raw honey. So they're charging a premium for this Manuka honey. It's from pollen that's related to the tea tree or tea tree. But they're exporting more than they produce. So straight away it has to be blended with something else at source. So we're a bit dubious in this country. Well, the beekeepers are a bit dubious about the actual properties of Manuka honey. We would argue that raw honey from the British Isles, they say local honey is best, but the fact that British Isles are so small, the pollen across the Isles are very similar at each stage of the year. We don't have a massive, unlike America, where you can start off with orange blossom going up through the wheat into the apples, and so there's things like that. It happens all across the board in the UK. So we would say that raw honey from the UK is as good as any honey in the world.
And is it true that raw honey can be used on burns and stuff like that?
Yeah. Traditionally, they used to use honey on wounds because it's antiseptic qualities. Burns, it's again antiseptic qualities on burns that they're using it for and treating. But it has a lot of benefits. The antiseptic qualities comes from another product that the bees glue the hives together with, called propolis, and even the ancient Egyptians knew that propolis had antiseptic qualities. So it's all in this honey in various amounts. Obviously helps with hay fever because we are not filtering out all the pollen grains, so any small pollen grains that are left in the honey, then they're still there. They're not being heat treated, so it's all active. There's no damage to the proteins and the complex sugars. I used to work in a food microbiology lab, and we'd get honey in to test, and the composition of the sugars is not just fructose and glucose. There are many complex sugars there, and it's those complex sugars that research is now suggesting is good for our metabolism. It kicks in metabolic pathways that we haven't used for a long time. So it's all good stuff.
Well, last year we found a book called The Honey Diet, and I followed this for a while, which was basically just taking a spoon of honey at night before bed. And apart from that, all I cut out was bread, and I did actually lose 2 stone. And we had some customers in the shop who also tried the diet, and they also agreed with it.
We had a customer in that she had an abscess in her groin, and she did offer to show us photographs. We did decline, and that she'd been under the doctor for a long time.
2 years it was.
Using lotions and potions and pills and things, and they weren't touching this abscess. It kept coming back. A friend of hers suggested that she tried raw honey, and she came back a fortnight later and said it was on the mend. Came back a month later, another 2 weeks after that, and it had gone, and she couldn't believe it. For the first time in years, she was without this abscess. So it is amazing stuff, magical stuff.
And then there's the type 2 diabetes, which diabetics type 1 and 2, who are swearing by honey, aren't they?
Yeah, we had another customer in wanting some honey. He was type 2 diabetic, and he reckoned that a tonic drink that he made with ginger, lemon, cinnamon, steep that for overnight, and then add the honey later when it's cool. That was helping reduce his blood sugar levels. His doctor was amazed, but it worked for him. We can't say that it's a cure, and any diabetics would need to run it by their doctors, but this one customer was quite happy that this was doing the job.
And another thing that you shouldn't do if you're making a honey and lemon drink, which is an age-old remedy, isn't it, for coughs and colds?
It is.
Go on, I'll let you.
It's bearing in mind what we'll be saying about this honey isn't pasteurised. It's not been heat treated, in other words. So when you're making honey drinks, honey and lemon or whatever, always let it cool off and then add the honey when it's cooler, because obviously you don't want to add it to boiling liquids, otherwise you're doing exactly what Tesco's and Asda are doing, and you're pasteurising it. Or you're just denaturing some of the proteins in there with the high temperatures. So just let drinks cool down and then add honey. I brought the empty frames back up to the hives this morning, just so the bees can clean them out, and I didn't realise this would be so busy. There they are, all buzzing around the empty frames. Some up there too. I haven't got my suit on, so I can't really go that close to them. Literally a hive of activity. So we're taking those, cleaning those frames out. I'll be able to use those frames again once they've cleaned them out. We've got masses of activity here. Even the little bits of honey on the bottom of the box here, I used to carry the frames, has been eaten and taken back to the hive by the bees. And just a few minutes later, it's like they've all come out to scavenge some of the honey. I'm probably told I shouldn't be doing this, feeding it back to the bees, but they're obviously going to use it. Otherwise they wouldn't touch it. They're all over those empty frames, cleaning them out. A few on the table there as well. Even though I couldn't get it out with the spinner, there's obviously some honey left in there for them. So quite a lot of activity at the top end of the garden. The last bit of honey's been filtering through overnight, and I've had to raise it up because the bottom of the filter was dipping into the honey, because we got a full bucket of honey there from the frames that we spun last night. So that's looking good. Just need to get that into jars. I've got all the honey jarred up into nice 12-ounce jars. Nice, well, it's not clear because it's not been ultra filtered, but it's nice runny honey, and we've got quite a nice harvest there. I'm very pleased with that. We just need to get Daryl selling it now.
Know you've been a good friend, and that's in the thick and thin.